Another episode of the Ultimate Intimacy Podcast. This week again with Austin. It's Friday, so it's gonna be a good one. We've talked about this subject a little bit in the past, but we thought it'd be important to talk about again because we really feel like a lot of couples really struggle with this. And so we're gonna talk about today how everything in marriage really comes down to your spouse feeling safe with you. And I think last time we kind of talked about it from making a wife feel safe, but how do you feel about also husbands feeling safe in marriage as well too?
Right. Yeah, I wish this is something I understood way before I did, and really understood in my own marriage. Like, help me understand what feels safe to you and why, right? Because there were so many times that I think me and my wife both thought we were being safe and nothing was happening, but under the surface, it was like this low level anxiety kind of constantly happening. And I see this with so many couples, like literally 100% of the women I've met with have brought up safety. Like I'm 100, like 100, right? And I often share this, and I may have talked about this in previous podcasts, but one of the things that really helped me, I've seen this done in two different places in like big groups. And um, what in essence happens, I'll share one of them. This was a Gottman kind of seminar type thing, and Gottman asked, he was talking about safety for men and women and the difference, and he said, before I talk about it, I'm going to give, we'll just do an exercise here, and he said, I want you men to think of the time you felt the most unsafe in your life, and he was talking physical in this context,
Yeah.
and like men weren't raising their hands, and Gottman said like I thought guys were just being tough guys kind of thing, right? And he's like, but then they start sharing like I was in Vietnam, or I was like mugged in like the streets of some big city or whatever, and he's like men didn't seem to have as many situations where they really felt unsafe. And then he said, how many of you women have felt physically unsafe in the last 6 months? Like every hand went up, right? And then he did like 3 months and a month. And he started going like lower, and he got to a place where he's like, how many of you women felt like literally unsafe walking from the parking garage to into this conference place? And like 60% of the hands went up. And he's like, men, what like what's your reaction? And men were like, what? They're like, we don't even think that way,
Yeah.
right? And so then he talked about like emotional safety, right? And for me, it was eye opening of like, there's just things, and I've learned this meeting with a lot of women, like there's things that women, they have to be aware of that men just, we don't think about. It's not the same experience. And so I remember early in my training, right, like safety is a core piece of what we're trying to create, like in a session. And I remember I was still in school, and we had like a clinic on site, right? And we call it co-therapy. And so it was me and a female therapist, and then we were with a husband and wife. And I remember one session, like this guy got really mad at his wife, and like I remember having this awareness of like, he's either gonna punch me, punch her, or his wife. Like I really like, and I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel threatened. I just felt aware of like he's not in control anymore, right?
Yeah.
And because we did co-therapy, I was able to talk to the female therapist after, and she was like, I was terrified, and she's like, and I sensed you like ready to like in essence fight a client, I guess. I mean, it's kind of crazy to talk about, but um I mean, I'll be really transparent. Like, so we're on this, we're in the heart of Vegas, and I go home and I'm like, I gotta buy a knife to in case I have someone attack me. It was like a weird scenario. But the reason I bring that up is like, for the same scenario, my body didn't go into I'm in danger because I felt like I can face this situation. It's not what his wife's body or the female therapist's body did, right? Because there's nothing they could have done to protect themselves from him. He was much bigger, much stronger, and whatever, right? And so when you take that into emotions, okay, women's body, when they don't feel emotionally safe, when a man's like, hey, I'm not even that mad, I'm like a level 3, a woman's already like, hey, am I okay? She might not be panicking, but her energy is going into tracking that. And a man often isn't even aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great point.
And so what I see happen with a lot of couples is a lot of women out of love, they end up pushing past that feeling, like in a relationship context. They end up doing that like in sexual situations, and it's like the nervous system starts to be like, I can't trust my environment. Okay. Um, and I mean, unfortunately, I pushed past this in my own marriage to a point where my wife was like, I can't be around you because I don't know where you're going to be emotionally. I don't know if you're going to be mad or not. I'm like, what do you like? I'm in a really great mood. She's like, I know, but I can't trust that because you've been in great moods and all of a sudden you've been frustrated. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I wasn't frustrated. And she's like, you sure looked right. And so it's like perception is different. I had to learn to comfort like almost beforehand in certain situations, right? Like, and when I gained the sensitivity of knowing where she might feel unsafe, I could start to like I said, reassure beforehand, and I still do that. Like it's not uncommon for me because of some of the things I done in my marriage, some of the pains I've created, to reassure, like, hey, I'm in a really good place. Like you're okay, we're okay, and then like, what do you need to feel that? Because there's times where she'll say, I how does she word it? She'll say something to the effect of, I I don't feel unsafe. I do feel uncomfortable. You haven't done anything unsafe, but my body's like kind of that alert, like, where's
Yeah.
that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And like so many women, when we start to talk about this, like they're like, yeah, that's like that's an experience for me. Yeah,
Do you think that's why a lot of marriages have issues as well too, especially on the wife side, not feeling that safety? Do you think it's because men, it doesn't really, they're not even thinking about it, right? You could be having a conversation or even an argument with your wife, and a man's never thinking that, but a woman might be, right? Like exactly what you're explaining, because they're more sensitive about that, which isn't a bad thing, by the way.
right.
But we as men, like you said, often get in situations to where we're like, oh, we don't feel unsafe in the marriage, or what have you. But maybe we're doing things that cause our spouse to feel unsafe, or what have you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this, it's not all about physical safety, but one of my professors early in school, and this was for our training as a therapist, he said, like, right, we have a class full of men and women. He said, you men have to be especially aware of, especially in couples therapy, like your sole goal is to make sure both feel safe with you. They're gonna hit times where they don't feel safe with each other. Your job is to intervene and go, we do things different in this office than you do at home. And he said, if you're not aware of one of them not feeling safe, you're going to push past, right? And you kind of lose one of them if they're not feeling
Yeah.
safe. And so they've impressed upon us a lot of, like, you got to track, and there's times where literally I'll see someone, like, whatever, they're interacting or their spouse is talking and their eyes are like at somewhere else. I'm like, they've left the room. Okay,
Yeah.
they're seeking safety or going somewhere else. It's like, hey, what happened? Like, can we bring you back? And a lot of people don't have the language to say, hey, I think I'm unsafe. They're just feeling it, right? And so this is a common kind of, I don't know, way that I help couples see it is I'll talk about like a situation where they got into like an argument or whatever, and I'll ask the man, I'm like, out of like 0 to 10, like how angry did you feel, right? And I won't have him tell me, okay. I want you to think about it, and then for the wife, how angry did he seem, right? And then I'll they'll share, and he'll be like, I was like a, I don't know, 2 3, okay, and she'll be like, he was like a 7 8, right?
And I bet that would be almost 100% across the board, right?
Yeah,
Like every
it's
time for every
it's
couple, right?
common. Yeah. And what happens unfortunately for a lot of men is when they're actually feeling hurt or they have fear or rejected, they they display anger, even that if that's not the core emotion. So it's very common for a wife to say you were super angry, and a guy's like, I wasn't angry, I was hurt. She's
Mm.
like, it didn't look like hurt. It looked like it looked
Yeah,
like anger,
true.
right?
Yeah.
And so going back, one of the other things we were taught in school is I kind of mentioned this a little earlier. He said men can feel, emotionally unsafe for sure. It doesn't pair with physical safety typically. Okay. Women, it almost always will pair with physical safety because, I mean, Tony Robbins talks about this often in seminars. He says women have historically been prey, and who have they primarily been prey to? Men, right? And so a young woman, like, she can just inherently feel unsafe around men for most of her life in public settings or situations. She can feel men are dominant or whatever. That's nervous system level, like your whole life. And then you get into a relationship or marriage, and your body's already carrying all that. And men are like completely unaware.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so this plays out a lot in the sexual realm again, where a lot of women have not necessarily felt unsafe. They're willing, they're being intimate, but then a man, pushes a little bit, or he seems like he's going to be grumpy if he doesn't. And so she's like, I'm going to be sexual to feel safe, right?
Yeah.
That's not the right motivation, right? That's not what she wants to be sexual for. But I hear this all the time where it's like, well, I didn't want to be upset. I didn't want to. So I was sexual with him, and that's like a struggle for the female's body. It's like I'm here to try to enjoy pleasure and be fully present while I'm also actually just managing my own fear, and that becomes very confusing for the nervous system. This is where a lot of sexlessness begins, to be honest. And so reestablishing safety, like, it's always, I mean, truly always the core. I'll tell couples all the time, like, all relationships start out unsafe. I don't know you. I don't trust you either. It's unsafe and I don't trust you. And then, right, like, we take a little risk and it's like, hey, you want to go to dinner? And we chat. And then they respond. And then they might take a little risk and we, right. And this is the nature of intimacy is, can I let you in? To what degree can I trust you and feel safe with you? This is where, that relationship can be born. A lot of people keep these, we call them the walls, right? Like, I can't go this far, past this with you because it's not safe anymore, right? And so therapeutically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create enough safety and then help a couple learn how to preserve it. And so I see people trigger all the time in session, right? And I just, in essence, intervene. And instead of they going this, I go, help me understand what happened there. And they'll start to realize that something started to feel unsafe. Triggering is fight, flight, freeze responses, right? And it's reactive typically. It's not like, I think I want to feel, reactive right now.
Yeah.
It's not conscious, right? And so we start to bring unconscious things to light consciously. It's like, hey, what happened? And it's like these micro expressions, right? It's like, well, did you hear the way his voice changed? Or did you see how she said that, but her eyebrow like raised? And it's like you interpret these things and your body's like on high alert, right? This is where so many couples are getting into struggle. Um, and it is often interpretation, but the way that the emotions work and perception is, if it looks like it might be dangerous, I'm just gonna act and feel to protect myself just in case. And couples don't know how to stop and be like, oh, hey, what happened? I think I just got worried that you were gonna pull away from me or reject me, or right, like, to
Yeah.
be able to slow that down and like, okay, we're not talking about the thing anymore. Now we got to talk about the safety and make sure comfort each other, right? Hey, we're okay.
Yeah, and as
Mhm.
we're talking about safety, I think a lot of people immediately, when they say feel safe, they almost relate it to like a physical thing, right? Like, oh, but in this case, we're not. I mean, for the most part, for most couples, we're not talking about feeling
Yeah,
safe as a physical thing. We're talking about feeling safe, like emotionally, or feeling safe that you can express your feelings to your spouse without being,
right.
judged, or
Yeah,
having these tough conversations, or conflict or what have you.
yeah, I think that's an important distinction. It's emotional safety. It's not necessarily fear of physical stuff
Yeah.
necessarily, right? But for most women, they feel emotionally unsafe in their body, right? The body's like kind of low level panic sometimes, or nervous system, depending on what what's happening.
Well, and
And so,
I think men can feel that as well too. I think men can feel unsafe in the relationship if a husband is afraid of, saying something that might set his wife off, or he's walking on eggshells or different things like that. I mean, I think, there's a lot of husbands out there that would say, "Oh, I don't really feel safe in the marriage either." Not again, not from a standpoint of physically, but a standpoint of like, "Oh, am I going to do anything that's going to make her upset or set her off, or, things like that and
Well, the
stuff."
comments we hear from men is like, if I don't do everything perfect, I'm gonna get rejected, you know? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's women
you're
can
totally
step it
right.
up in the emotional safety too, because constant rejection is not gonna make him feel safe in the marriage.
Right.
And I mean, this is the gap we always talk about, right? Because if she doesn't feel emotionally safe and secure in the marriage, she's not gonna want to be intimate. Like, it's just these things all go so hand in hand.
Well, what's important, I think here. I mean, you're absolutely right. We talk a lot about safety with women, and maybe what I should say is we often need to start with that awareness. But I tell couples all the time, like you two are responsible for this marriage being safe. Like he can help you feel safe, you can help him feel safe, and if you're both doing that, like how are you, right? Then you have a mutually beneficial relationship because both all of us have our sensitivities, right? We all
Mhm.
have these fears, and we want to be accepted, we want to be loved, and so that fear of rejection is probably the most common thing I hear from men. Right? Like, and it's not all about sexuality. For most men, it's we might have a bunch of sex, I still don't feel cared for or loved or valued, or I kind of feel like I'm placated, or I'm treated like a child, or right, there's all sorts of things. And so one of the things that I tell couples all the time is when people feel safe with each other, they actually communicate just fine. Okay, so right, therapeutically, we talk about communication skills often. When people are feeling safe, they have more access to like healthy communication and more
I
awareness
love
of
that. I love that
yeah,
you're saying that because oftentimes we're just like, oh, you need to communicate better. Well, but if you're not feeling safe, you're gonna go distant and not want to communicate. I'm glad you're bringing that up because that's really important. Like it just isn't about talking more.
right. And that's, I think, one of the things, like on a neuroscience level, like healthy communication is in the prefrontal cortex. When you're feeling unsafe, your amygdala's, your nervous system's taking over your limbic system. And so it's like it's as if everything you know about communication like goes out the window. And this is where you see these shifts where it's like we went from healthy to not like this old pattern is what we call it for most couples. People describe it like it's like a cycle, or it's like this storm that just kind of takes over, and all of a sudden we went from like a connected vacation to now we're sleeping in different rooms on our trip or whatever, right? And it's like it's something we try to help couples a lot. Like, did you guys choose this? And like, no, neither of us wanted to disconnect. Okay, then how do we unite you against the cycle? The first thing is safety. Okay, what helps you both feel safe? The caution I want to make here is it's oftentimes what happens is people start to say, you're alone responsible for my safety, not myself, right? And people manipulate each other all the time with safety.
Oh yeah.
Like, well, I don't feel safe when we don't have sex 5 times a week. That's not a safety issue. That's I feel rejected. Well, you are being rejected, but it doesn't mean you're not being loved, right? And so, what I tell couples all the time is we want to look at the safety to be open. It doesn't mean that your every want and need is going to be met all the time. It does mean there should be safety to be open
Mhm.
with what's important, what's valuable. And so I tell couples, and this is what we help with therapeutically. first is I want to help build confidence between them in the nervous system. And this is something I didn't know how to do for probably, I don't know, truly probably like, I don't know, 12 years of my career. We were doing it, but it was like a 6-month process. It was very slow to try to help create this safety in the nervous system. And then over time I learned some different tools where it's like, hey, let's help you both kind of individually start to regulate the nervous system, but also co-regulate it together. When you're doing both, when a man says like, I want to stop triggering, like even if I'm feeling rejected or need me, triggering doesn't help. Same thing for a wife. So let's help you like learn to sit with, hey, I might feel a little, maybe I'm unsafe, but I don't know yet. Let me check. Right. So instead of like, you're always this way, it's, hey, are you telling me I'm not lovable anymore? Typically the answer is gonna be like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Okay. And so we help couples like, how do I regulate my nervous system, but also retrain it together where it's not always reading this as a dangerous thing. So a lot of our goal in couples therapy is let's help you build a relationship where you both feel secure. It doesn't mean all your wants and needs are going to be met all the time, but it does mean you feel secure that I can reach and I'm going to be loved back, right? And when couples understand like that's what we're trying to build first before like great sex or what, right? Like if we have the security where we can be ourselves, and I often tell couples like, let's imagine that there's a table in front of you, and the table is just really safe to put anything on top of. It's like it's sitting on the table. There's no threat. It can be a want, it can be a desire, it can be a need. Like just put it on the table, and then as a couple, decide from your strength, what do you want to do with it, instead of we're responding to this from panic or fear or anger or whatever. And so when a couple can, we call it, when they can slow down and go, hey, what's the primary goal first? Well, we have to maintain safety, because the minute safety is not happening, everything else that comes after it honestly kind of doesn't matter. People aren't going to hold it. They're not going to hear it. They're not going to do something new typically, because their whole interaction is like, I'm just regulating. I'm just regulating. I'm just regulating. And this is where a lot of people bail. Like this is changing like more and more. Like historically it was like men would withdraw and women would pursue. It's shifting. It's probably more of like a 60-40 of men withdrawing and women pursuing. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, 60% of men will withdraw, 40% of women will withdraw, the opposite. And so what's happening for the withdrawer is it's just related to the fight, flight, freeze. I'm backing away from something that feels unsafe. And this is what happened. Like I talked to a couple recently, and the guy's like, I haven't even tried to initiate like intimacy in years. I said, how come? He's like, I'm afraid of rejection. So I'm anticipating rejection before I've even tried, and I've already felt it in my body before we've ever even interacted about it. Okay.
And we heard a lot of men say that.
Yep.
Right.
They don't even try anymore because
Yep.
they're afraid of failure.
Yep.
Right. And so that withdraw, that's right, that's your flight mechanism. It's like, I'm going to pull back just in case it's even dangerous. I'm just going to get back before. Okay. What that does for what we call the pursuer is the pursuer goes like, hey, wait, my spouse is going away. That also feels dangerous. I'm going to pursue that connection. That's more connected to an anxious style. And it often we call it's like the fighting for connection. It's not, I'm trying to have a fight with you. It's like, please come back here, like connect with me. Now, a lot of times that fear turns into that kind of anxious, can be anger and criticism. Like, you're never here for me, right? It feels like they're trying to start a fight. It's not what's happening. They're fighting for safety. Come back. I don't feel good when you run away. That's scary to me. So almost all couples, when they're disconnecting, they're doing this dance of these nervous system responses. And so if we can help them like truly feel like your person's not a threat, right? No, you have to not be a threat. but that doesn't mean you're meeting needs all the time. It's, for example, the ability, for example, I'll just use something from my life. Like I remember I was like, hey, I can be okay not being intimate. What's hard for me is when I feel like I'm not like loved or worth the effort or whatever, right? And so one of the things that over time we kind of discovered is like my wife would be able to say, like, I love you. I like intimacy with you. Tonight's not going to be best. I would prefer to be able to like show up and tomorrow or the next day or whatever is going to be better. So yes, we didn't have sex, but I also didn't feel rejected because she was still telling me I love you and I care for you and I want to be intimate with you, just circumstantial, right? And so I wouldn't go into like I was rejected and I'm not lovable and I don't matter, right? I was just like, okay, so we're not having sex tonight. I can handle not being sexual because it's not connected to my lovability, my my worth, whatever, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. I think that's great.
So I think when couples can identify, and a lot of couples can't, when they can identify like what happens that makes me feel unsafe, like yes, when I'm rejected or when he's angry, or right, of course we can see those, but a lot of times these things are happening in like the small moments where literally they're like connecting and then something like very benign happens but it has a meaning, and then they're feeling it before they even know what happened, right?
Yeah.
And then the place I think is valuable for couples to know is like when one feels unsafe, their reaction is typically going to put the other on high alert. Like, oh, wait, what happened? Right. Now you have two people triggered, right? Two people in this kind of tug of war thing. And it's like they're not even really having a conversation anymore. They're actually having a conversation with their own internal dialogue. So I was with a couple earlier this week and I had them like really go slow. I said, help me know the moment what happened for you. And they shared what happened. And then I said, and then at what point did something happen for you? And they identified it. And I just said, I want you each to go, what was the dialogue in your head? Okay. They had these like real stories, like he this and she this. And I said, did either of you actually say any of those words to the other person?
Like, no.
And they're like, no. I said, so, she didn't talk about 7 years ago and, he didn't bring up, right. And they're like, no. It's like, okay, so your mind filled in the blanks. Here's why I'm not safe. Here's all the things that they do.
Yeah, I think we do. Everyone does that a lot. They assume, right?
Assuming.
Totally. And you're like, this is the skill set we want to kind of break. It's like, and this is hard for me. I've learned the skill set to say, my body and my emotions are telling me, A, is that what you're trying to communicate? No. Okay, what are you trying to communicate? And I've wrestled with like, do I trust my body or do I trust you, right? Who's actually trying to communicate to me? And when couples can like really slow down and be like, okay, I'm feeling this. Is it accurate? Okay.
And I love that you're saying that because I remember hearing something that 95% of the time we make an assumption we're going to be wrong, right? But we all do it, right? We assume our spouse is rejecting us because of this, or we assume they don't love us, or we assume they're saying this, whatever. We make assumptions, and that becomes our reality. But in reality, that's not true. And so I think what you're saying is great. Ask your spouse, is this what you're really meaning, or is this what you're really trying to say? Versus
Mhm.
having that assumption that, oh, that really hurt what they said because I know that they're meaning it this way when in reality they didn't.
Yeah, that's
Right. And the challenge for couples is trusting their spouse over their interpretations, their stories, their meanings, right? This is where a lot of traditional couples therapy, when we do kind of like the weekly, it's the idea is over time you're having a new experience, it's interrupted, and the nervous system's kind of updating. Like, oh, I can do this and I don't get that. That only happens when you're not both reacting and it's being kind of one of the things that is really valuable in like an immersive like experience, like an event or something, is you go through a lot of that in a short amount of time. It's like a more rapid, like it's an experiential healing, and the body's like, oh, okay, we can actually stay here, and instead of disconnecting this much, we're going to interpret that there's some danger, but then we're going to check, and we're going to go like, hey, do you actually hate my guts right now while we're on date night and 3 minutes ago we just made out? Like, did you go from we made out and now you hate my guts? Like, that's what I'm feeling, right? No, I don't hate your guts because I asked you to use your blinker like that, right? Like, I mean, these are the types of things that happen for people where their body's like, you're not loved anymore. It's like, oh, you're like freaking out internally. And so being able to like, hey, I'm feeling this. Is it accurate? No, I don't dislike you. No, I don't not love you. Whatever that core fear is for all of us, a lot of the time it's we want acceptance, we want belonging, we know we want to reach for care and comfort, and obviously the safety piece. Like, am I safe with you?
Well, and I think when couples ask each other questions to understand how they're feeling, that brings that sense of safety, right? Like they care enough that they're asking. So if I ask Amy and I say, "Hey, is that what you meant, or what did you mean when you said this?" Rather than, just feeling whatever, like I think that alone is going to bring a lot of safety within the relationship when couples are asking those questions and having those discussions, trying to understand each other rather than making those assumptions. And, it comes back to, communication. But again, it's kind of one of those chicken and the egg things. You're not going to feel comfortable having that communication if you're not feeling safe, but it also is so essential to have that communication to feel safe as well too. So
Yeah, it goes both ways. To wrap up this episode, I'm going to put you on the spot. What would you say? What would you say would be your top 3 short and easy ways for couples to build more emotional safety in their marriage? Just starting right now, just if they want to feel more emotionally safe and connected in their marriage, what are 3 easy things that a couple can listen to this podcast, get off the podcast tonight, spend some time together, talk about, like, what are 3 things that just would make a couple feel a little more emotionally
you
safe
are
if
putting
they
him
do
on the
that?
spot, asking him for 3
I
exact
know.
things. He might have 7 or he might have 2.
If you have more than 3, we're gonna have to just do a part 2.
No, the first one that comes to mind is I would have each of them go take 10-15 minutes, and I'd have them write, what do you love about your spouse?
Okay.
And then I would share that. Okay.
Love
That
that.
that's not addressing, it's not a conversation about safety, because right, what's the greatest fear? I'm not safe, I'm not loved, I'm not cared for. So if you have that dose of like, oh, you like me because of, even though it's not perfect between us, like that's where I would start.
Okay.
That's gonna soothe. Okay. Whatever's happening, it's gonna soothe it. Okay.
Love it.
Love that.
Second one, probably, let me think. The second one I would probably go with, I would, as a couple, I would start some sort of like learning to regulate your nervous system. Okay. And there's some things we do in like the trauma work kind of realm, kind of the neuroscience realm. It's not enough to like quote unquote meditate. Okay. It's really this practice of how do I rewrite my perceptions where that no longer equals danger to me if it's not actually dangerous, right? And so there's some skill sets and tools that me and my team have developed over the years that it's really meant to like hit the nervous system, the attachment system, and right, if you don't have access to those types of things, what I would do, and I tell men that truly what I would do is I would start cold plunging, and I would start thinking while I'm in the cold water, what are the times I feel unsafe with in my marriage, and can I handle it? Okay. The nervous system is going to go, cold water is the worst. I can handle when I'm perceiving I'm rejected, and I can stay in the pocket. I don't have to bail, and I don't have to get angry. Okay. That can be valuable for women. And I'm not trying to cut women slack with like, no, you don't have to get in the cold. The more valuable piece
I will
for
not do that. I'm out.
more valuable piece typically for women, and this can be a little vulnerable, so there's maybe, let's call it, some little bit of struggle on each side, but the idea is to spend time and just ask yourself, not what makes me feel unsafe, what helps me feel safe. Okay. And then there's a little bit of risk of saying, hey, I really want to feel safe with you so we can connect, so we both have joy. These are the things that when they're in place, I feel the safest, instead of what happens a lot of times is when you do all that, I don't feel safe. And a man's like, I don't know what to do then.
Yeah.
So if you can identify, here's what I need to feel safe and connect it to connection. When I'm feeling safe, I can come close to you. That's where a guy goes, oh, okay, then I'm not unsafe
Yeah.
anymore if we get close. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's great.
And then I think the third one, I'll call it like a kind of a daily buffer. I often tell couples when we get started, like take 3 minutes, 5 minutes in the morning. You can even create your own kind of guided, meditation kind of thing if you want. Your core goal is I want to get in tune with my spouse, like who I am. I'm a spouse, and who my spouse is, someone I love. If I can feel that early in the day, and then some level of expression, like, hey, I care about you. I'm excited to see you later tonight if they're already gone, whatever. Like the earlier you can express some form of care, you're each able to carry that throughout the day. And so, like these micro connections, like, hey, how's your day? Great. I want you to know that I really appreciate dinner last night. 2 hours later, hey, I just was thinking about this weekend. Like, just these little doses of, like, you're my person. We get busy, we get out of sight, out of mind. When couples are doing just these little teeny things, it's like a buffer, and you're less likely to have all this pressure later of fearing rejection, fearing unsafety. And so
I
that's
think
Love it. Love it. Really great.
I think it was great advice. So yeah, I
Mhm.
do as well too.
Yep.
Well, there are so many people out there struggling with this, both husbands and wives. I think this can be a great episode to help couples understand maybe why they're feeling that way, and then what, more importantly, what they can do about it. Yes, we always talk about giving couples the tools to know what to do when they're in certain situations in the relationship. And I think this episode, especially at the end, gave them the tools of what some of the things couples can do to feel safer in their marriage. And so we thank you so much for the podcast. Awesome episode. And if anyone wants to reach out, talk to Austin, meet with Austin, email us at amy@ultimateintimacy.com. He's amazing. He's helped so many couples, and we
it.
really appreciate that. And so I guess until next time, we hope all of you find ultimate intimacy in your relationship.
Awesome.